Are we set with the video? Great, thank you. We've actually already opened the meeting tonight. We had to go into private session right away, so you don't have to listen to me read a lengthy introduction. I'm going to ask Rob to lead us in a flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we are honored and very happy to be starting our announcements this night from the podium, which means that we're honoring some of our amazing student athletes. So tonight we're going to start by honoring the high school boys cross country team, who are the NJSIAA sectional champions. The boys team also finished second at the Group 4 state championship and competed at the Meet of Champions as well. We've invited 10 members of the cross-country team, including its 4 captains, to join us this evening. And before I ask Coach Tefelsky to come up and say a few words about the team's success this year, I'd like to call each of our runners to the podium to accept a certificate of recognition. And then hang out, because there will be lots of picture opportunities, if you wouldn't mind. So first, the captains. Cooper Brennan. Daniel Hahn. Yeah. James McCutcheon, who's one of the captains. Congratulations. Thank you. And Ronnie Maleo. Jonathan Givelbar. You have to forgive me, my North Carolina comes out. It's not intentional, sorry. William Logia. Congratulations. Jack Morantz. William McGlynn. Zachary Spurgel. Kevin Usatepe. So before I ask Coach Tefelsky and Assistant Coach Matthew Van Dersen to come up, I'd also like to just note that to recognize Coach Tefelsky for the program's 100th consecutive dual meet win for boys cross country. So if Coach Tefelsky and Coach Van Dersen can come up, I'd like to give you an opportunity to say something about your team.
Thank you so much for taking the time to recognize these guys. These guys are just a portion of our 67 boy roster that we had this year. And you mentioned the 100 dual meets. I'm going to give Jack Martin a shout out on that. Jack Martin was a longtime coach before I was, and those probably 60 of those 100 dual meet victories are under his guidance, not mine. And there's a certain level of responsibility that you feel when you take over a guy like that to keep things like that moving. So, but none of those races were run by me. They were all run by guys like these and many guys who are not here. I think that speaks to the legacy of the team and the tradition that we have. And these guys have accomplished the things that they've accomplished because of the example that's been set by guys who've come before them. And shout out to our 4 captains, Cooper, Dehan, James, and Ronnie, because their example has just been fantastic. When you've got a group that big, you need internal leadership, not coaching. You need kids to teach other kids, and these guys do that exceptionally well. So thank you so much, guys, for everything that you've done, all the sacrifices that you have made, the support, the sacrifices that your families have made to make all of this possible. But it truly is a community effort from the board and the administration, coaches, kids, families, the school boosters, the Friends of Westfield Track. It really is so many different people playing their roles that make great things like this happen. So thank you so much.
All right, I think you guys are good. Thank you. You guys are welcome to stay, but if you'd like to exit, I will give you a moment to do so. Thanks for coming. All right, we are not done because we also want to recognize our girls' tennis team. And I'm going to invite Charlotte Clausen and Eliza Weiniger to the podium. So the first doubles team competed in the state doubles tournament championship match in October, and the first time since 2005 that a Blue Devils pair has made it to the final. Charlotte and Eliza won the first doubles title at the Union County tournament a few weeks ago, and we just want to congratulate you on that wonderful accomplishment. Thank you. I'd like to invite your coach, Matt Varley, to the podium to say a few words and to congratulate him also on the program's 800th win.
I can hang this in my classroom next to some of the other stuff that I have. I just want to thank the board for the opportunity to recognize these 2 wonderful student athletes. They're great tennis players, that goes without saying, but they are just tremendous people. I'm going to miss them a lot, and this was a lot of fun. I think we had a lot of fun this season. They did extraordinary. They also actually were selected to the first team All-State, so that was quite an accomplishment as well. And, I'm one of a few lucky coaches in New Jersey tennis to be able to coach a finalist in doubles. And, girls, I want to thank you very much for a great season. Congratulations. Good luck, and thanks again to everybody for having us tonight.
Okay, you're good. Thank you, guys. And lastly, I believe our girls field hockey coach, Caitlin Cheddar, is here. If you wouldn't mind joining me at the podium, please. So we want to recognize you and congratulate you on the girls field hockey program's 400th win. So congratulations. You guys have you want to say a few words about your team? That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to recognize a phenomenal program that I've had the opportunity to play for, be an assistant coach for, and now a head coach for. So it's really been an honor to represent Westfield and Westfield Field Hockey. We have a number of wonderful young ladies back here who came to hear their shout out. They have a lot to be proud of. And just like Coach Shafelsky said, they set the tone. And they have absolutely done an excellent job this year. We were conference champions this year, and we look forward to a fantastic next year as well. So thank you very much for your time tonight. We really appreciate the recognition. Thank you.
So much. Marianne, can she get, why don't you get the girls up?
Yeah, bring the girls up.
Come on, ladies.
Nobody wants to be in a picture.
Nobody wants to go. They're the part.
There you go.
I'm embarrassing you. I know. It's my job. And then half. Smile nice.
Over here, everybody. See, there's a multi-sport athletes here. Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
Sorry.
Action shot. Smile.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It is nice. It's really nice.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming, y'all. Thanks.
Another one of these.
I know. I think I look tall now.
All right, so we're gonna keep on moving forward with any other announcements that the board might have tonight. Lynn, do you have an announcement?
Yes, I have two. Congratulations to the cast and crew of Westfield High School's fall production, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which was performed before enthusiastic audiences last month. Hats off to, as well, to director Daniel Devlin and the dedicated theater parent community that supports each production. A total of 27 winter concerts are taking place in Westfield Public Schools, beginning this week and ending on February 9th. The entire schedule can be found on the district's website, www.westfieldnjk12.org, in the December-January edition of Arts a la carte. Westfield senior citizens are once again invited to the final rehearsal of Westfield High School's winter choral concert on Wednesday, December 19th from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. in the high school's auditorium at 550 Dorian Road. There is a ramp access at the front of the auditorium.
Thank you. Brendan, do you have one?
Yep, I have two. As it has done in previous years, the Westfield Public School District is hosting two important graduate-level Holocaust education courses. These courses equip educators with information and teaching strategies to implement a long-standing multidisciplinary program in the district's K-12 curriculum that includes age-appropriate instruction in the Holocaust and genocide. You can read more about the district's Holocaust genocide education in the recent news section of the district website. And congratulations to Supervisor of K-12 Social Studies, Andrea Brennan, and the Westfield High School Social Studies teachers, Hillary Haskell, Kimberly Legan, and Elizabeth Piombino, who gave a presentation at the annual conference of the National Council for Social Studies in Chicago last weekend. The theme of the conference was Yesterday, Tomorrow, Building the Future of Social Studies. Our four educators presented an overview of a popular social studies project in Westfield Public Schools that empowers students to discover and connect their own stories of history through oral narratives and genealogy.
Thank you. Kent, do you have any?
Yes, I have one. Congratulations to the 8 Westfield High School students who recently achieved the highest score possible on the SAT and SAT standardized tests. Westfield High School Principal Dr. Derek Nelson congratulated the students, citing their outstanding achievement on the test, which are widely used for college admission criteria. Top scorers on the October 6 SAT Math are 11th graders Cheyenne Burns and Sauvage Torremala. 11th grader Stephen Park earned a perfect score on the November 3rd SAT Math. And on the October ACT, the following 11th graders achieved perfect scores: Mac Falletta in reading, Robert Hinderleiter in science, Stephen Park in reading, Samantha Shee in reading, Alan Sullivan in math, and William Sirks in science and STEM. Congratulations.
Thank you, Amy. Yep, I have two. The following Westfield High School vocalists represented the high school at the All-State Mixed Chorus Concert at NJ PAC on November 18th. Charlotte Geary, Zachary Lemberg, Joseph Maldonado, Vincent Mora, and Matthew Cerroti. We applaud these students and their vocal instructors for their talent and devotion to music. And continuing on a musical theme, 3 Westfield High School students will perform in the 2019 All-Eastern Honors Ensembles next April in Pittsburgh. Selected to perform with the All-Eastern Honors Orchestra are senior Kevin Lee, first violin section, and junior Brooke Walden for flute and piccolo. Senior Matthew Cerroti was selected as a vocalist with the All-Eastern Honors Chorus. Each student will spend 3 days rehearsing with one of 5 directors during the Eastern Division Conference of the National Association for Music Education in preparation for performances on April 7th, 2019. Congratulations to these talented musicians and their dedicated instructors for this prestigious recognition.
Thank you. Rob?
Yes. Looking ahead to the 2019 to 2020 school year, in January, the district will conduct kindergarten registration for all children who are residents of Westfield and will reach the age of 5 on or before October 1st, 2019. First grade registration will also be held for children who are residents of Westfield and will reach the age of 6 on or before October 1st, 2019, and who have not yet attended the Westfield Public Schools. The registration schedule and forms will be posted on the district's website on the Family Resources tab under Student Registration starting tomorrow.
Great.
Peggy?
Yep. If you've been watching our last couple of board meetings, you may know that a key goal for the Westfield Public School District for the 2018-19 year is to assess current practices promoting social and emotional learning and to expand for consistency district-wide. To help parents and other members of the community better understand SEL, social and emotional learning, and the way it is incorporated into everyday learning, an SEL page has been created on the district website at www.westfieldnjk12.org and on each school homepage under the Family Resources tab. Please, we encourage you to visit the SEL page often in the coming months as videos and other resources on this important topic are posted. And my favorite announcement, since this is our last board meeting of the year, the Westfield Public Schools will be closed for winter break from Monday, December 24th through Tuesday, January 1st. And we wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday season.
Thank you. Like Peggy said, this is our last board meeting of the year. So our next meeting is going to be a reorganization of the board, and it's going to be held on Thursday, January 3rd. It's not a Tuesday, but a Thursday, January 3rd at 7:30 p.m. at 302 Elm Street. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, December 21st on the board section of the district website. Lynn, before we go to the superintendent's report, can I ask you to open the door? I think the noise is probably, I just think we need to be open for public. Thank you. So with that, superintendent's report.
Thank you. And actually, tonight's superintendent's report is our annual audit report. And to begin this, I'll turn this over to our business administrator, Dana Sullivan.
So we are required every year to have our financial books of the district audited by an outside firm. The board chose Hodgelick & Morrison to do that audit. They came in, a team of auditors from Hodgelick & Morrison started around the end of August. I believe they completed their field work around November 11th, something around there. So they were in the district for quite a number of months, auditing all aspects of the business office as well as payroll. We do not have the final reports tonight, and that's because we're waiting for information from the state of New Jersey. There's a new requirement that our financial statements reflect payments that the state makes on our behalf for post-employment retirement health benefits for employees, and the state hasn't yet calculated and given us those numbers. So normally our timeline is December 5th to have the audit completed. And then within a month of that timeline, the auditors are required to make a presentation to the board, and the board has to accept the audit. So we have scheduled for Bob to be here to do that, and he is here tonight, and he will present his findings. But the actual final reports will not be in our hands until we get the numbers from the state. And at that point, we will have copies of a synopsis for the public, and the board will have all of the statements. The board does have draft statements, and Bob's gonna talk about that as a little bip tonight, and also on his auditor's report tonight. But unfortunately, I said we can't finalize those, and we don't even know deadlines at this point. We were told at one point it would be sometime in December, and now I think we're hearing sometime in January. So I'm sure Bob will probably speak more about that, but with us tonight is Bob Morrison from the firm of Hodgelick and Morrison. He was the lead auditor on the audit this year.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This year's a little different. School districts in New Jersey don't get to make their own rules. That's a good thing. The rules are set by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is an independent organization headquartered up in Connecticut. We have a statute in New Jersey that says you must follow their promulgations. So generally accepted accounting principles come from Connecticut. We follow them here. Years ago, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board was looking at ways to improve the meaning of financial statements for governmental entities. They were looking at unrecorded liabilities. Pension obligations were not being disclosed properly. They also felt that the costs of benefits paid to retirees was not being recorded properly. Their belief was that you should accrue expenses and liabilities and hopefully funding during the working life of every employee who is entitled to a benefit after they retire. So your retirement costs should not be pay as you go when you're paying them after they leave. You should be accumulating resources to pay them while they're working so that it doesn't impact budgets beyond their working careers. When they got to this post-employment health benefits, they ran into a problem. They knew they were going to run into a problem. They mandated many years ago that if you have a health plan and you have post-employment benefits paid, that you should start doing these accruals. Unfortunately, many governmental units don't have direct health benefit plans. They belong to multi-employer plans like the State Health Benefits Plan, and the data isn't available to them. In addition, there's a lot of other places where the people who have the employees aren't responsible for the costs of those payments. That's what New Jersey school districts have, because the state constitution requires the state of New Jersey to cover the cost of the health benefits for retirees. So, when they passed the first standard, they exempted everybody who was in a multi-employer plan or had somebody else responsible for making the payments. And that created a world of problems, because now you had lots of cities, towns, school districts, counties accruing these expenditures, creating these liabilities, making their financial statements look really rotten. And then you had a lot of other places that weren't showing anything because they weren't they didn't have their own single plan. So to remedy that, in June of 2015, the GASB adopted statement number 75, which requires an allocation to be made by these multi-employer plans to all the participants so that they could go start accruing the numbers the way people with their own plans do. They also, in that document, required allocations be made for the annual costs to employers who aren't responsible for payments. So, in June of 2015, a standard was put into effect that basically put the Division of Pensions of the state of New Jersey on notice that sometime in the fall of 2018, they were going to have to produce some numbers for all the school districts in the state of New Jersey. We're 41 months since that standard was adopted, and we're still waiting for the numbers. That's why we don't have a report. The good news for the district is that it really only impacts the A section of the report, the entity-wide full accrual financial statements, which essentially has nothing to do with your budgets and nothing to do with the calculations of your fund balance, right? If you've heard me do one presentation here before, I'll say there's 3 different sets of financial statements in a New Jersey school audit. There's the A section, which they try to make it look like a business. There's the B section, where they follow the national accounting standards on a fund-by-fund basis, your general fund, your special revenue fund, your capital outlay fund. And then there's the C section, which is the New Jersey budgetary basis, which is sort of gap with a few little twists and turns built in by the legislature. The C section is the section that is what drives your budget. That's not impacted at all by this. So the Schedule C1 that was included in the distribution, that document is a final document as far as we're concerned, and that will be what goes into the final CAFR document when it's produced. That document should look somewhat familiar to you. It pretty much is your board secretary's report with a couple of adjustments. At the end of the year, after Dana closes, the state comes out with what's known as on behalf revenues and expenditures for all the things that the state does pay for on your behalf. The state pays the employer's share of Social Security for all the TPAF members. We come up with a number for that from the state, and we plug it into the Schedule C1. The state provides us with data as to how much they paid on a pay-as-you-go basis for these post-employment health care costs, and we plug that in. They also tell us what the pension accruals for the year would be in accordance with the National Accounting Standard, and we plug those in. And then finally, it's inevitable that at some point after the closing, the state comes up with a letter saying, oh, by the way, we have some revenue to distribute. So Dana's already closed, we build in whatever the state says into the document. Those are basically the only changes that we had between what you see in the board secretary's report and the C1. That's a good thing because, and I've said this before and I truly mean it, you people can rely on the data that comes out of your business office. And for budgeting purposes, that should give you great comfort. There are places where you can't rely on it, and those places are frightening. As far as our report on the financial statements go, we have a draft of our opinion on the financial statements. It's not finished because I believe I'm going to have to insert what's known as an emphasis of matter paragraph into that opinion, and I'm not exactly confident that the language I penciled in is correct. So there may be some changes in there. I may have to throw in a couple of numbers, and I'm going to have to refer to an additional note to the financial statements. But other than that, the opinion is good, and the opinion is unmodified. Essentially, an unmodified opinion is what you look for. It means that based on the audit work we did, the audit evidence we gathered, we're satisfied that the financial statements are materially correct, presented in accordance with the national standards, and complete in all respects. That includes disclosures. So we have that. We also have further back in the report, I think it was like numbers 19 and 20, 2 other reports that we issue. One is based on an expanded scope of the engagement required by government auditing standards. It's a publication of the Comptroller General of the United States. It requires a government auditor to not only evaluate internal controls as part of our engagement, but to test the internal controls and to test significant compliance requirements that the government has to operate within. And this is on an entity-wide level. That report essentially says we found nothing about the internal controls that we consider to be a material weakness. Now, everything is relative. We look at internal controls differently based on the size of the client, right? You're a pretty good sized school district, so we expect you to have some pretty significant controls, and you do. Essentially, the report says the controls were adequately designed, they've been placed in operation, and they're operating as intended. So that's a positive thing. That's an unmodified report on internal control. Our compliance tests, we do probably 40 to 50 different compliance tests. On an entity-wide level, we're looking at national laws, which a lot of those deal with the IRS regulations, timely payroll processing, deposit of withholding taxes. We look at state laws. We look at some of your local requirements. Essentially, we're testing to make sure that you're complying with everything that the State Department of Education expects you to comply with. And our report there says we found no material noncompliance. In fact, we found no noncompliances. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, because you have good management. The other thing is because they haven't changed the compliance rules in a while. And that's a beautiful thing. Because nothing makes compliance auditing harder than having a compliance environment that's constantly changing. So the Department of Ed has been relatively quiet on the promulgation front for the last few years, and that means Westfield has never had a problem with compliance, but some of my more wayward clients have now gotten to the point where they're pretty much complying with everything too. The last report we issued, I think was number 20 on that list of things we gave you, is a report on what's called a single audit. It's a report on a deeper dive into the internal controls over compliance for major grant programs. Essentially, if you receive more than you spend more than $750,000 of state and/or federal dollars, we have to identify what are known as major projects and then do extended testing on them. Major programs could be based on dollar size. They could be based on the complexity of the regulations that they run under. They could be based on the fact that they're new, right? We're looking for the riskiest programs to pick, and that's what we go in and audit. Our report it's actually an opinion on compliance on major programs is unmodified also. We found no material noncompliances. Again, we found no noncompliances, and in our opinion, the district has complied in all material respects. So 3 reports, 3 clean opinions. As far as the financial statements go and what I consider to be best practices, every time I come here, I love to look at your health insurance costs because you guys actually hit it out of the park 3 years ago when you went to the self-insurance program. You are actually 3 years into this. You are still spending more than $500,000 less in 17-18 than you spent in 14-15 with premium-based coverage. So that's amounted to millions and millions of dollars over 3 years. That's impressive. The other thing that you've always done and you've managed well is your unemployment compensation insurance, your self-insurance for that too. The board made a contribution of $30,000 last year, and you have enough. That's compared to what you would be paying if you were in the state's regular plan, which is contributory rather than self-insurance. You're saving a ton of money there, and your program is in pretty good shape. You've got, I think it's 2.9 times your 17-18 benefit costs sitting in a reserve at the end of the year. So not only is it cost effective, you've got a reserve set up so that if you do have any significant need to increase your unemployment compensation, whether it be bad hires or layoffs, you've got a cushion. The last 3 pieces of the email that you got dealt with the auditor's management report. There's a 1-page letter which basically says, we filed our report and here's the additional management report which deals with some of the specific compliance aspects of the engagement. It's about an 8-page, 9-page document. There's no findings in it. We cover what the state requires us to cover, but essentially, we didn't find any problems. And I actually tell my staff when they come out here that I want them to find something. And I try to bribe them. I'm buying lunch if you find something. So they try, and I rotate the staff. We had new people out here again. I like to get fresh eyes on the job so that I don't get anybody getting too comfortable. And this year I actually did run the engagement myself just to make sure nobody was getting too comfortable. Anyway, there's the 8 pages. The last piece of the management report, we used at the end of the management report, if we had no recommendations to make, we would say it once. We have no recommendations at this time. Somebody down at the Department of Education didn't like the way we were saying it. So now we have a full page where we say we have no recommendations 10 separate times. I guess they want you to be proud. So on 10 different occasions on that last page, we say no recommendations here. And essentially, it was a clean audit. We always get the complete cooperation of the staff. That makes it easy. My staff loves to come out here, so it's never hard for me to find staff to man this engagement. And everything went well. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to field them. And in the event that after the CAFR does get filed, if you want me back, I love talking about this stuff, so I'd be happy to come back.
I actually like that new requirement that you say it 10 times because it just reminds us, because it reminds us that the level of detail, that you're looking at our student activity account, that you're looking at, applications for state school aid, the purchasing programs.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Transportation, absolutely, the whole 9 yards.
You have the level of detail.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we're here as long as we are.
Yeah. And Dana, so we're not voting tonight. We'll put it on the agenda whenever we get that additional piece of information.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, it won't impact any of your budgetary stuff, and there's an electronic document that has to get filed with the state to get the budget process started. That's done.
Okay.
So this isn't going to hold up your budget process for 1920.
Any idea when we should expect to see those numbers from the state?
Well, they said, the last time anybody was willing to commit, they said the end of November. We actually had a spy go around the State Department of Ed and go to the State Department of Higher Ed because it's fouling up the audits for the county colleges too. So we had somebody go to them and say, have you heard anything? And they were told the end of December, which means,
March.
well, if these things aren't filed by January, they're really going to screw up my winter. So I'm hoping they get out by the end of December.
All right, any questions? Dana, thank you for all your hard work. Bob, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I realized sort of belatedly that I went out of order and I skipped over agenda item 5, which is recognizing anyone from the public who might be here for agenda items. If you're here to comment on an item on the agenda, now would be the time to come up. You're also welcome to wait to that portion of the agenda when we address that specific item. And then at the end, we have an opportunity for people who may just want to ask us things that are not on the business agenda for tonight. All right, I'm going to move forward. I'd ask the board to approve the minutes of our board meeting held on November 13th, 2018, in the private minutes of the same date.
Second.
Brendan, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions?
I will abstain because I was absent that meeting.
Rob abstains. Moving on, personnel. Peggy.
I'd like the board to consider items 1 to 25. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ken? Dr. Nolan, I think there's something you'd like to speak about?
I do. We do have a retirement. Tonight I am announcing with regret the retirement of Roseanne Schlisky, who has been a paraprofessional in the district for 29 years. Roseanne began as a library aide in Roosevelt and Franklin and then transitioned to a student-assigned support position at Franklin, at Wilson, and McKinley schools. For the last 18 years, Roseanne has been an invaluable part of the transitional kindergarten staff, most recently at Lincoln School. She is known and respected as hardworking and conscientious and has a special rapport with her students, and we certainly wish her well in retirement.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Dana?
Lynn Benner,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Facilities, I don't have a formal report tonight. We have a facilities committee meeting on December 21st. That's a Friday at 8 a.m. Dana, anything going on with any projects that we need to know about?
No, we're awarding, under finance tonight, we're awarding a project for emergency generators at all of the schools.
Right.
So that's a project that's going to, we're awarding it now because there's a very long lead time on the, on actually ordering the generators. So that project will start sometime in the spring, and we hope to have those all in place by the start of school for next year.
Okay.
And then we have a number of other projects that will be going out to bid over the next few months, things that we talked about, I think, at our last board meeting.
Okay. Great. Long-range planning, Amy.
We had a meeting tonight before we came down here to this location, but we kind of didn't really have a chance to get into the discussion about the social and emotional learning, but it actually kind of dovetails a little bit into what Peggy's announcement had been about the videos and the parent resources that are going to be on the website. So maybe over our winter break, we could all take a chance, take a look at what's there and keep an eye on that space as things are developing. We did tonight get a chance to hear an update from Mary Ann McGann about our efforts to sign up alumni and increase our ability to reach out to them. Mary Ann's got some ideas about some stories profiling some of our alumni, which we think will be interesting to all of the community. So we encourage anybody out there that may be watching or who has family coming back to sign up. And I think the link for that is also available. Where's the best place to find that, Mary Ann, on the website?
It's on the website under district.
Under district.
Information, and it says alumni outreach.
Perfect.
You
So.
can just repeat that in case.
Right, so under the district information, there is a tab for alumni outreach, and that is where you can sign up, and we'd love to keep our alumni informed. So that's it for now. We would like to schedule another meeting probably before the spring gets too much farther away, perhaps on a night when we don't have to compress things. So we'll talk about that, scheduling.
Right, it seems that we always run out of time, the long-range planning, so maybe if we do it where we don't have a hard stop,
Right.
then we'll be
Right.
able to accomplish more.
I support that plan. Yep. That's it.
Okay. Policies, Brendan.
First, I ask the board to approve policy item number 1. Thank you, Kent. It's approved for first reading the 2020-2021 school calendar as attached. Any comments or questions on that?
Do you, anything that you want to say?
I would just say probably, it's similar to other calendars we've had recently. Obviously, we always work around where the various holidays fall. But it is similar, it happens to be a late Labor Day. It's, Labor Day is the 7th, so that changes some things. We are doing the same process we've done for a few years at the elementary level. Since that first week in November is always broken up, we have the State Teachers Convention in Atlantic City that Thursday and Friday. So the Monday, the Tuesday, and the Wednesday are half-days for the elementary schools heading into that. The secondary schools have full days. December break is a rather traditional one. The children go to school until the 23rd, and then because the New Year's Day is on a Friday, the students return on the 4th. It really is always just when things fall. We have a 4-day weekend in February for President's Weekend. The teachers actually have a professional development day on that Friday, so they have a 3-day weekend, but the students have a 4-day weekend. The spring break happens to encompass both most of Passover and also Good Friday. And Memorial Day is off, and we have graduation scheduled for June 23rd, which is a Wednesday.
It's also worth noting that we did discuss it being a presidential election year with Election Day, and with the teachers' convention being Thursday and Friday, to close schools on Tuesday. It didn't, for continuity, it didn't make sense to go to school Monday, home Tuesday, school Wednesday, and then home for the rest of the week.
Yep.
And we are working with the county to continue to reduce the number of schools used as polling locations.
And we appreciate the fact that we do have police officers in every school
Mhm.
that is used. And in each case, it is a separate location and a separate entrance,
Yeah.
the polling area.
Okay. Dana?
Lynn Benner,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
And I ask the board to approve policy item number 2, second reading.
Second?
Thank you, Kent. It's the second reading of policy 6470, payment of claims, 6660, student activity fund, 7430, student safety, or school safety, 7440, school district security, and 9150, school visitors. Any comments?
Question?
Dana?
Lynn Benner,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
All right, and I ask the board to affirm the superintendent's decision in HIB incidents 19R01 and 19R02 for the reasons set forth therein. Dana?
We have
Oh, second,
Second.
sorry.
Second.
Thank you, Amy?
Lynn Benner,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
All right, that's it. We have a policy meeting on the 11th at 7 o'clock.
Next Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. Curriculum, instruction, and program, Michael is not here, so I would ask the board to consider curriculum items 1 and 2. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Kent, thank you. So, the first item is the district field trips and overnight field trips that are set forth on the attachment to the agenda. The second item is the first reading of curriculum. It was math curriculum, Algebra 2 Advanced, Algebra 2 Honors, Pre-Calculus, Pre-Calculus Advanced, and Pre-Calculus Honors. We had a great curriculum committee meeting, but I'm like blanking. I don't, and I know that Michael wasn't there, so we didn't circulate notes, so, and I'm not having any luck connecting through the internet to get my notes. So does anybody who was there have?
Yeah, we had a robust discussion of Holocaust and genocide studies
We
throughout the
did.
district.
And the pacing document, is that a fair way to put it, Paul, of the ways in which that topic is sort of weaved through K through 12 curriculum? And I think we had a conversation about making that accessible on the website for families to access. It's not a true curriculum document because it's not structured the same way as a curriculum document with like a goal and then, lessons, an outline of the course throughout the year. But like I said, it's like a document that sort of shows how it's weaved through all of our curriculum, K through 12. So thank you. Yeah, I totally spaced that. And then we talked also a lot about it's always an opportunity for us to talk to the supervisors, and we have a new math supervisor in the district, and so she presented the math curriculum, and just in terms of sort of anticipating issues and how she's doing and how the curriculum is growing in the district. But I can't remember anything else.
We talked a little bit more about social and emotional learning, and it sort of ran off the rails from there, but.
Okay. Anything, can you think of anything else to mention?
No, she talked a little bit in the reference to the mathematics programs, how they tweaked some of the classes, whether or not it was the advanced classes, the honors classes. I believe there were some repetitive things, and they moved things around to be in better places and so forth and so on. So it was great to see how much work she put into it to look at all the details and really try to get a better sequence for the kids and so forth in the mathematics programs.
Generally, what's the difference between the advanced and the honors in these math classes?
So it's pacing, the speed with which, how long you spend on a particular topic, and I think that's the primary, the sort of the depth that you dig. Is that accurate, Paul?
Yeah, and the one course leads to Calc PC, so
Right.
Calc Advanced leads to Calc PC. The other two classes don't cover as much material, but they go in depth in the areas that you're in.
If you look at attachment 2, it sort of breaks down how each course flows.
Right.
And there are some courses where, through the years they figured out that certain cohorts of students need extra emphasis on certain topics so that the next course makes sense, or the next subject in that same course makes sense.
Okay.
Or the students get it and they can go much more in depth, or get further into the book throughout the course of the year.
There's nothing like a curriculum meeting. I'm totally going to go off topic for a minute. I think that we should try and rotate through.
Mm-hmm.
Even so if it's possible to get board members who have a full-time job, if they can find a Thursday morning to come when there's going to be a lot, maybe. I mean, I know I don't want to make for a lack of consistency on the committee, but maybe something to think about to sort of rotate through, because there's really nothing else that we do that's like it.
Yeah, it was my first SIP meeting in 5 years, and
Yeah.
it is a piece that you miss sitting at the board table, because we don't. If the supervisor's up here, it feels like an interrogation, where it's really more of a conversation.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. So anyway, sorry, that was like a scattershot report. Does anybody have any questions about anything on the curriculum agenda for tonight?
No, I'm good.
All right, Dana.
Let's hope we can get Michael back.
Yes.
Ken Diamond.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Robert Garrison.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Amy Reed.
Yes.
Michael's not allowed to miss any more meetings. That's December 20th is the next curriculum meeting. Finance. In Charles' absence, I would ask the board to consider finance items 1 through 17. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Rob. I'd like to acknowledge gifts from Franklin School PTO of $1,260 to purchase poster paper, a new backboard for the gymnasium, and 5 classroom document cameras. A gift from Mr. and Mrs. Magnanini of a Bach 1530 trumpet case, valued at $200 to be used by the district where necessary. A gift of $4,480 from the McKinley School PTO for the installation of a wood fence around the garden area. And a gift of an automated external defibrillator valued at $1,126.50 from AHS Hospital Corporation to be used at Westfield High School. So we thank the PTOs and individuals and corporations who so generously have given those gifts to the district. Dana, anything to call out on finance?
Yes, I just want to point out the first item on finance is we're changing the board schedule for this year. That is because when we got the state calendar on the budget requirements, they changed the calendar a little bit. When I did the original board calendar, I was using last year as a guide because we didn't have this year's calendar. So the April 23rd, 2019 meeting is now April 30th. And that's so that we can have our public hearing on the budget. April 23rd was too early. The 24th is now the first date that we're allowed to have a public hearing, so we just pushed that back a week.
That's the only change?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
Dana?
Lynn Benner,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Amy Reed.
Yes.
Finance committee meeting this Friday
Yes.
at 8 a.m. in the conference room. Technology. Peggy?
I have no report. We will be meeting on the 14th of December, and when we come back in 2019, I'll hopefully have a nice long report for you.
I would ask the board to note the notes for the record. And then I'd ask, do we have any unfinished business this evening? Okay, well, I have a piece of new business. Bittersweet. But I want to take some time to recognize Rob Garrison and his time that he served us with us on the board. So we have a formal resolution, and if you want to say a few things, certainly no obligation, but you're welcome to. But I just want to take a minute. I want to say something, but I have a couple. Both Charles and Michael sent me something to read to you, and I cleaned it up. So I took out all the inappropriate. No, I'm just kidding. So first, from Michael, he says, "Dear Rob, I wish I could be there this evening, but unfortunately travel required me to be out of town this week. I'd be remiss if I did not take a moment to thank you for your 3 years service on the board. Over the past 2 years we've served together, I've seen firsthand your tireless commitment to the district and our students. Whether we were discussing a policy, reviewing a financial report, or attending to any other matter before the board, you provided your own perspective and ensured we looked at all the facts, even taking a second look where necessary. Your strong family values, faith, and dedication to the school board and students of Westfield truly exemplify our tradition of excellence. Look forward to seeing you when I return later this week." And then Charles said, first of all, I can't do it. I can't deliver in Charles' manner. So I first of all would like to apologize to Rob for not being in attendance this evening to recognize his time and work on the board. Over the last 3 years, I've watched Rob become a valuable member of this board. He has great insight and knowledge regarding how a board should operate. At times, he pointed out what we really should be thinking or addressing. Rob was truly an asset for us all. On a personal note, Rob has become someone that I consider a true friend. He is someone that I have come to know better and someone that I look forward to having an opportunity to continue to get to know better as this friend. This board, as well as myself, will truly miss his candid nature and honest approach to things. I wish Rob and his family all the best. So personally, I just want to say that I'm grateful to have been on the board with you for the past 3 years. And as president, I've been particularly grateful for your unique perspective that you bring and the mindfulness that you bring to the board. So in this relatively short period that you've been here, I really believe that you've changed the culture of our board to cause us to be, all of us to be more thoughtful about the transparent nature of the work we do and not to be complacent in the way that we hire and maintain relationships with our outside professionals. Your professional experience and willingness to share your thoughts have been invaluable, and I hope that you will not be a stranger, and I wish you the very best. So I just want to take a moment to offer anyone else from the board to say something before I present Rob with his resolution.
I'd like to. First, I've been on the board for 4 years, and I like to say when I came on the board, I didn't know anybody. And I've gotten to know a lot of wonderful people who have chosen to give back to our community. And I'd like to thank you for coming out and running and giving your time and effort, because I do know it takes a lot. You have a young child and a job and a wife and so forth, and I do thank you for coming out and being part of our board. I think when you came onto the board, you listened, you learned, and you implemented. And that's, a wonderful thing. We, to have somebody come on and make us think about the things that we do, question us, keep us in line with rules and regulations. It's great. And you will be missed. You've been a dedicated member of our board and a voice of reason and a wealth of knowledge. Through your career and what you bring back, the information and so forth, really is something that we benefit here. And, the most important thing is that you do have the best interests of the students, the staff, and the community. And I will miss you, and I hope somehow you'll come back and work with us again, whether through a special project or something else, because I think your talents are truly appreciated here. And thank you.
All right, will you join? Oh, did you? I'm sorry.
No, I wanted to say too that I don't have prepared remarks, but it's been great sitting next to you and learning from you. And we tend to see each other in this environment. Some of us know each other from our lives outside of this table, but people who have full-time jobs away from right here, we don't often get to see in action. And I got to be at workshop last year in Atlantic City with Rob for a little bit of time, and the amount of people that he knows and the connections and the way he brings you into that and invites you to share in that is really wonderful, and it's been helpful and wonderful to get to know you. And yes, I hope you're not a stranger.
So come, let me embarrass you. So it is my distinct honor to present you with the resolution from the Board of Education. Whereas Robert Garrison has served for 3 years on the Westfield Board of Education with dedication to the children, families, and community members of Westfield. And whereas having served as chairperson of the Legislation Committee, Robert Garrison followed legislative initiatives, keeping the board informed on important policy making at the state and local level to maintain Westfield's tradition of excellence. And whereas Robert Garrison has served on several committees, including budget and finance, policies, negotiations, and long-range planning, and as liaison to the parent-teacher organization of Wilson Elementary School and to the Garden State Coalition of Schools. Whereas Robert Garrison received the new boardmanship certification from the New Jersey School Boards Association Board Member Academy. Now therefore be it resolved that this Board of Education recognizes Robert Garrison for his volunteerism and service on the Westfield Board of Education from 2015 to 18, and that this resolution be presented to Robert Garrison on December 4th, 2018. and that a copy of this resolution attesting to the appreciation of the Board of Education becomes part of the official minutes of this meeting. Thank you very much. Yeah. You want to say something?
Well, you know what, because we have a finance committee meeting on Friday, and we have a special meeting next week, I forgot this was the last board meeting I was going to be at. So I do not have anything prepared, but I do want to thank everybody. I've had a really good time, the 3 years being on the board. It's really meant a lot, and I know when I first came on board, maybe, even though you've gotten to know me to be really kind-hearted and good-natured, maybe it didn't come across that way initially, but my heart was in the right place. And so I thank the board, I thank Dr. Dolan, I especially thank all the work that Dana has done, and just what a tremendous district we have, really based a lot on the fact that our finances are in such good shape. And that was one of the big reasons why I ran, because of the bond referendums we've had in the past, because of the amount of construction that we do and that we continue to do. It really, I thought I could impart some decent judgment and background and history into helping the district. And I think I've done that for the most part. But I am very thankful, and I'll miss the board, but believe me, I'm not going anywhere. My daughter's only in 3rd grade, so we're here for a while. But thank you so much. This will be cherished. I'll hang it up, as one of the coaches said, next to some other things, but maybe in a good spot. But thank you so much. Do I have to hold it up like everyone else?
Thank you. Do we have any liaison reports tonight?
I will give one. Wilson Holiday Craft Fair will be this Saturday from 10 to 2. It is quite a great opportunity for folks to get involved, and it's great activities for the students. And as I mentioned earlier, even though tonight's the last school board meeting, I will be attending the December 18th Garden State Coalition of Schools meeting in East Brunswick.
Thank you.
So I'll maybe pass notes on to Amy to give at the next meeting.
Great, sounds good. Any other liaison reports?
I met with the Tamacos PTO last week. It was a good meeting, a lot to cover. They said that the food drive for Thanksgiving was a huge success. St. Joseph's was really appreciative. And we talked about, well, people always donate food in the holidays. Maybe we need to do something in the spring. So they're looking at doing something again in the spring, work with Dr. Doltz. I showed them the pictures of the renovations proposed for the lobbies, and they were all excited. And they, even though it wasn't their school, but someday the kids will go there. But overall, it was a good meeting.
Great.
I was down in Trenton for a school boards association meeting this Saturday, and then the week before Thanksgiving, 2 different meetings. A lot of talk with. Saturday's meeting was focused mostly on career and technical education programs throughout the state, particularly with the bond referendum passing statewide for, I believe, $350 million will be available to expand the county VOTEC programs. They have not yet decided how that will be allocated, and funds won't be available for about a year and a half. The other discussion was about the proposal to consolidate and merge districts, mostly small rural districts out in the western part of the state, or western and southern parts of the state, where there's, say, a K-5 district or a K-8 district that goes to a regional high school. There's no consensus on how they want to approach that, and it wouldn't really impact Westfield, but it was a long discussion from people who represent very small towns.
Okay. Thank you for attending that.
Gretchen, one thing I forgot, and I know being a stickler for the organization of all this, I did want to welcome Tara and wish her luck when she comes in January.
Thank you. Thanks. I have a quick liaison report. I attended the first meeting of the steering committee for the re-examination of the master plan. So that's quite a mouthful, but what I learned is that what the town is doing is re-examining a current master plan rather than recreating a new one. And that that they're going to be the company that they hired to sort of steer that process was hired in particular because they're particularly good at reaching out to the community, and so they have a series of workshops that are going to be, or in meetings where they're going to invite the public to come and offer their opinion. They're really excited about trying to involve our students when they get to talk about especially in particular, are the fields and the parks. And so I'll continue to update you guys as those meeting dates are set, and then share information and sort of liaison back and forth to the extent that there's conversation that impacts the schools. I mean, one of the most obvious connections that happened initially was a conversation about, how the changing demographics of the town is impacting enrollment, and how decisions that are made by the planning board about knockdowns and subdivisions, of course, impacts populations at schools, and how there should be a better conversation about those decisions between the district and the town. But I'm excited. I think that it's going to be an interesting process from my perspective, and so I'll continue to share that as we go.
Gretchen, can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
When I was in Bergen County, I was head of the planning department, and we, unlike municipalities, there's not a requirement to a certain number of years every year or a certain number of years for the municipality or this instance the county to revisit it. And when we were doing that, thankfully through the guidance of our county executive at the time, and the current county executive feels the same way, they did include schools. It's not so common to have the schools play and the district play a role in the master plan. But when you think about what the master plan is, and when you're looking at the long-term impacts of that visioning process, it is hugely important that the district be involved. And I'm glad that I don't recall that happening in the past, but I don't know because I wasn't here. In terms of the school district being asked to participate, because it is very important, instead of just passing documents along or looking at something you can find online, to have someone physically there to be part of it is hugely important. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you're doing that.
Yeah, and I think in particular when there's sort of a sub plan in connection with the parks in the fields, and that's also a way in which we should really have a seat at the table and offer.
Town actually asked me to sit in on that.
Ah, that's
so
wonderful.
Good.
Okay,
the
great.
plan.
Are you able to do that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll see what happens as we move forward. At this point, I would recognize anyone from the public for comments or questions, if anyone wants to come up to the podium. Okay, seeing, there we go. If you could just say your name and address.
Yeah, hi. My name is Benjamin Schneider. I'm on 219 Sinclair Place. I wrote an email, but I thought it was better just to come and speak about this. I wanted to discuss the news of another incident of anti-Semitism in the Westfield school system. As I'm sure you're aware, anti-Semitism has been on the rise nationally and globally, and one can only assume that this is a trickle-down effect of the current political climate. I am concerned about the communication from the school system. On separate instances where swastikas were inscribed on school property, including the current incident at Edison and a previous incident at Franklin Elementary School in February 2017, there has been kind of a downplay of the true nature of these incidents or crimes. The emails sent by the schools, past and present, avoided calling the incidents what they are. Neither the word swastika nor anti-Semitism were mentioned. I wonder if there was a reason why. Transparency in communication is paramount. This is what is expected of our children in the schools, and this is what the community expects of the school system. It is only because of an email from Temple Emmanuel that I'm aware of the true nature of the crimes. There is a real danger in not using the word swastika or calling a hate crime what it is. This minimizes the incident and those that are involved, and absolutely can lead others to take a dismissive attitude. Now that there have been multiple instances, I think we should expect better and more transparent communication. We need to work on ways to improve tolerance and acceptance within our schools. One step in the right direction is to address these issues straight on. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Dr. Dolan's going to start.
Sure. So, first of all, the incident from last week is still an ongoing police investigation. Right? The incident was not merely anti-Semitic, as was stated in my email. In trying to be transparent, there were hateful messages, and the word hate was used. Hateful messages against many groups of people. Now, I did not list each and every one of them, but the truth of it and the transparency is what was written. there were hateful messages regarding various groups of people. If it had been a swastika, if it had been completely anti-Semitic, I would have no problem in saying that's what it would be, nor would Dr. Bolton, but it wasn't. And again, it's an ongoing police investigation, so you're not going to give details. And, you know, it was interesting, that afternoon, by coincidence, when Dr. Bolton was still trying to determine and identify who had done this, right? And that, as you can imagine, takes quite a bit of time to do that. And I'm going to digress for a second. That's the thing a school wants to do first, because there are 844 students in that school. 844 students did not do something hateful that day. In this case, one person did something hateful. So your goal as an administrator, your goal is to do everything you can to find out who that is, because that's how you're going to get at the problem, right? So everything was done to get to that place where we could identify, and you can't always do that, let me be clear, but boy do we try hard, because that is how you are going to get at the root and the cause. And it is not fair to blame 843 other students who had nothing to do with it. So that was our main focus. When we were in the midst of doing that, and again, it took many hours, when we were in the midst of doing that, just by coincidence, I had two of the leaders for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Association of Westfield meeting with me. If you don't know this group, they're a marvelous part of the Westfield community. For 26 years now, they have committed themselves to making sure, to doing their best to make sure that every single group in this town is treated with respect. I think they're amazing. They're a small group, and many people do know, many people go to their ceremony every year. Many people march along with myself and others from the school on Martin Luther King Day. Every clergy in town participates, and every year it goes to a different house of worship. And people coming together, literally singing "We Shall Overcome," because it's what we're all been fighting for. It's not new, and it hasn't gone away, and maybe it's worse right now. But it's something that isn't new. We haven't just thought of it. We continue to do it. So I was meeting with this group because we were making sure we have plans for this coming January, as we always do. And one of the women who's there, she's an African-American woman, and I actually shared some of what we were in the midst of. I didn't tell her any details, but I said, this is what we're in the midst of, and this is what we're trying. And she said, you know, I've often said to my family, you know, only African-Americans have to sit at the dinner table and have the conversations we have. And she said, but then I said that to another community member in town, and that woman is an Indian American. And she said to me, and at my table, because we're Indian Americans, we have conversations that other people don't have. And she said, I started to realize how many groups there are who are sitting and having their conversations, each one different, you know, and I'm not here to rank them, trust me, but they're going on around the whole community. And I share that because as I thought, as I was writing to the community and trying to be honest and transparent, and I was angry. And you might hear, I still am angry with all the work everyone does here, with all what the teachers do, the counselors, the administrators, with all our good children in our schools. Not perfect, but good, respectful children. I'm angry, and I'm not alone in that. So as I tried to write through and deal with my anger, I thought, I don't want to minimize this. There are families around the community who have conversations that others don't have to have. And we all need to think about all of those groups. It was multiple groups who had hateful statements, and every single one of those groups is important.
I don't agree. I truly appreciate this. I just am looking for calling something what it is. That's really what it is.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So I think,
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I appreciate, this is not about that. This is about communication with modern.
So in this particular instance, let's say, and I understand, I do understand why, I think there were a lot of assumptions made by the community when they got the email.
Yes.
And I would say that those were, you know, people should have slowed down before they made those assumptions, because it was not just an anti-Semitic event, and I think that people should have noticed that when a swastika was appeared at Franklin, that specific detail was disclosed in the announcement that was made.
It was not.
This year, absolutely it
But the one in
was.
2017, the email had no
So we
mention.
learn our
And we
lesson,
learned.
right?
And we
so
learned.
when it just happened this year, it was specifically referred to as a swastika. So if it had just been a swastika, there would have been no hesitation. But so my question to you is, because I've been thinking a lot about this, is right, I appreciate that you want to know, but in this instance where let's say there are 7 different groups, and some of the words that are written are foul and nasty, how do you just pull out one and not list them all?
Listen, and my focus is because I was notified by Temple Emmanuel that it was a swastika. I wasn't aware of the other, and I think this kind of gets to the point. As the public, we don't know exactly the nature of what it was, and I understand there's an investigation involved, but I think there's got to be something to reduce the assumptions.
I don't know how we control that. I mean, I think
know,
a very honest
listen,
statement was made
I don't disagree
during
that
the course of a police investigation that's currently still happening.
For example, in Duke, they most recently had a swastika inscribed, and there was a swastika inscribed on a wall. Like, it just states it.
But that's not what happened last week.
Right, and I guess that's the question. So what happened?
There's a active police investigation, and what happened was that a number of hateful words and
Okay.
symbols were scrawled on a wall at Edison.
By no means is this an indictment. This is just encouraging conversation, and we try to have these conversations with our children and to be open. And I just really think, and I get it, and I understand the legal side of things. I'm just looking for as much transparency as possible, reducing the assumptions and so forth. So,
I understand. I think part of what you're also probably hearing is a frustration from us because, so we've spent the last 2 board meetings, if you go back and look at it, talking about the work that the district does. And, you know, I don't mean it in a very broad way. I'm talking about work that our teachers are doing in the classroom every single day from K to 12. And they're not just doing it now, like, oh, it's a new idea. I think the district has accepted its responsibility in character education for decades. And so there's a level of frustration and there's nobody to scream and yell at, right? There's an event, it happens in the school, we shouldn't, you know, march a child down the street and like get, so I understand why people are saying it happened in the schools, let's get mad at the schools, something's happening in the schools or isn't, something that should be happening in the schools isn't happening. But my perspective is, this is a community issue. We need to acknowledge it, and we are one part of a group of very many different leaders who needs to put on their battle, you know, put on their armor for this battle, because it is not just something that's happening in our schools. And you know what is happening in our schools? Countless times a day, really, really good things by countless students. And so we cannot be defined by this one incident.
I am not, and by no means am I defining, and I know the majority of the people are good people, and these things, I hate to say it, it's just becoming more common. Anti-Semitism or hate crimes are more common. There is a reality here.
Absolutely.
That's not the idea. This is not an indictment of our schools. I know we have good teachers and great programs. It's really just the communication component, and I appreciate hearing, you know, your rationale behind it. I don't disagree on some level, but I also do think there is a value in calling a spade at times. I do, and I think that doesn't allow a dismissiveness of this. And I'm not saying that's the goal here, but I think some people are dismissive of this. Oh, it's just a kid being a kid, and I've heard that. That to me, there's a danger there, and I would prefer more transparency. I understand.
Gretchen, can I make a comment too? And it's to that point, and something that both you and Dr. Dolan said. I agree that, and I think most of us would, that the climate and the culture right now, it seems that there are more instances occurring. But I'll flip that coin to a certain extent and say, because of transparency, you're also hearing more about instances that maybe would have been brushed under the rug and maybe not made public in the past. So even though I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree that more can be done, I always think things can be done, because there's never, there's no true perfect nature to any of this. But I would say that in a lot of respects, more is being reported. There's more transparency now than probably ever before. And there are times where you'll hear about incidents because now you have, whether it's HIB, whether you have conduct, whether you have character policies now in this school district and with each individual school, that things are brought more to light and to the table than probably even in the past. So do I think there are more instances occurring? Possibly, but I also think that there also is more transparency and there also is more of a willingness to actually address these issues in a forthright way.
Can I just say something also? I believe it might have been the same day that occurred at Edison. I attended that morning a character award ceremony for the Edison students, and there were upwards of over 60 students that were recognized from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that had gone above and beyond being just good citizens, you know, acts of kindness, acts of just great, you know, kids, and they were all acknowledged that day. So, I mean, we've devoted time here to one, you know, unfortunate bad incident, and then, you know, I just want to make mention that there were over 60 kids that morning that received awards, that they were acting the way that Westfield is proud that they act.
I appreciate that this is not, I really want to focus more on the communication side, because there have been several instances on multiple occasions. I know there's so many good things in the schools. That's not the goal here.
Well, and I appreciate the feedback, and you're right. I mean, I don't know that we can ever communicate and rise to the level of what the town or what some would desire. Because I know that there are some who want every nitty-gritty detail, and that's probably not ever going to happen. So from some perspective, we'll probably always fall a little bit short. But one thing that was made very clear in Dr. Dolan's statement, and I hope has been made clear repeatedly by this board, is that what happened at Edison, it's not acceptable, and we do not tolerate it. And so, you know, I think that in prior times we've been accused of being a little muted in our response, and I think Dr. Dolan, on behalf of the district, was very clear, and there was nothing muted about what she said this time.
Appreciate
it. And just one other comment of other items that are available on our website. We had a presentation at our board meeting on October 30th. And I know it's hard to kind of wade through sometimes the full video of all of our board meetings, but on October 30th, we had a presentation from Dr. Cambria, Dr. Duncan, and Mrs. Slomchevsky, thank you, from Franklin, that were talking, they outlined what the program is for talking about basically character education at the elementary level, and the kinds of resources that are available, and why certain things are introduced at certain levels because of age appropriateness. So in Dr. Dolan's synopsis for October 30th, there's actually a link if you look for it, and just that portion of it is available, and it's 17 minutes, so it's not tiny, but it is good and fulsome, and the people who have had concerns, who I've shared that with, have found that to be helpful. So it is something that people might not be aware of, and I would encourage you to look for it. Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Again, not an indictment, just encouraging transparency. Sure. Thank you.
That's what communication's for.
Hi. If you could just state your name and address, please.
Sure. Dr. Kim Van Ardenbron. I'm at 925 Carlton Road. I have 3 children in the district, 1 at Edison and 2 at Jefferson. I'll be brief, but I just want to say that, first of all, thank you for all of your service. Appreciate the expression of the anger and frustration that I think we all share at what we're facing right now in our district. But I'll just say that I think that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts with respect to the minorities represented in our community, but also the schools. I've talked to Dr. Hung, I've talked to Dr. Bolton about the extraordinary programs that they're doing with respect to tolerance and bullying. So my question, though, is bringing those parts together as a district, at the district level, what are your thoughts on coming forward with no tolerance for hate crimes to any minority from the district level? So bringing the whole together, saying as a district, we don't accept hate. We have 0 tolerance. I know the individual schools are really doing a tremendous amount of work, both curriculum such that it's age appropriate, but that's one question. And the second question I'd like your input on and perspective is on parental accountability and liability, the laws that exist in New Jersey, particularly with respect to defacing school property, and what your perspective is and thoughts on that.
I was going to let you handle the first one. Sure, sure.
So are you specifically talking about the program for the Anti-Defamation League?
There really are a multitude of programs, but I know other districts have been successful in combining the already existing strength of programs across the district to say to the community at large, as a school board, as a superintendent, that we have zero tolerance. In addition to these other programs, they're not mutually exclusive, they can only build.
Right, so if I remember correctly, it was last year maybe that you spoke with me?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think it
correct?
was
Yeah.
2 years ago after the first
Okay.
Franklin Institute.
So for 2 years, we've actually tried to become part of that program and haven't received responses. But the good news is, this year we sent numerous messages. The good news is I finally was able to make a connection yesterday or today. I think I spoke yesterday and I emailed today. And so we have a meeting coming up next week with the secondary principals and myself to discuss that.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
But we have tried. We have honestly not received responses. But that's in the past.
Okay.
Now we have made a connection, and
Okay.
so.
And
Yeah, I
I'm
just have
happy
to
help
educate,
facilitate,
myself a little bit
yeah.
better, and the board, like, I don't, to me, that's like, well, yeah, I mean, of course, we're a district too, so I need a better understanding of what that would look like. And if you've had conversations with Dr. Dolan, then she can certainly share that with us, because I don't think that there's any one of us who would say that that's not something that we're 100%, 120% behind.
And I think we are already doing that
Yeah.
without that program. But from
Right.
your perspective, we're not, and I understand that.
Yeah.
Is it a program or a board resolution?
There is one specific program, but you're right, there is more than one out there. But there's one specific program. It really is based more at the school level, but you can combine it at the district level.
And to answer the second part of your question, it's a great question, and it's something that I think we're still trying to figure that piece out, and we have legal counsel that we need to consult with, and we don't often get opportunities to converse together about these types of things, and we just haven't had a chance to since that event. It makes sense, I understand, and I certainly understand both the deterrent effect and the responsibility side of something like that. It's not something that we've had an opportunity to talk to with our legal counsel or together as a board yet, so I don't want to make a statement on behalf of all of us at this point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the follow-up on the program, and I look forward to the update on that. And also appreciate the acknowledgement of parental accountability being a really important piece when we're all talking about minors. So would love an update on any future conversations you have on that as well.
Sure, absolutely, and you're always welcome to email us, as sort of follow-up if we don't respond in a time manner that we should be. Okay, thank you. So at this point, the board has a workshop planned tonight to start talking about our budget for the 2019-20 school year. And so we do those conversations in a workshop type style. We generally like to do them in the conference room where we can sit around a table and all sort of look at each other in a more casual environment. It is open to the public. You're welcome to come up there with us. Were you giving me a nod about something? No. Okay, so we're gonna,
This is a conference room as well, so people may just not understand that it's upstairs.
Oh,
And it's a little smaller, and doesn't have a camera.
Upstairs. Yes, so
Yes.
you're welcome to come if you like, and thank you for being here.
So we are not adjourned, we are continuing.
We are not adjourned.
And it
Hiatus.
continues.
Hiatus, there you are.
We're commuting.
We're commuting.
Bye.
See you next month.